Adams County plans a new route for Meals on Wheels after the sudden announcement the meal train was ending. Past heads of the Colorado Republican Party blast the current leader as unethical and corrupt for what he did today. Republicans are preparing for 3 wild congressional primaries where it won't take that many votes to win a seat.
You have a scenario where 80% of the electorate in a district did not advance that person. They chose someone else.
And here's a question on a cold day. Does your landlord have to provide heat? Asking for a 7-story building full of tenants during this frigid week.
As a Colorado renter, you are entitled to a clean, habitable place to live.
It's tonight on Next. Adams County leaders are being presented with a plan to save the Meals on Wheels program there, with a warning included about putting more taxpayer money into unstable nonprofits like the one that collapsed, nearly taking Meals on Wheels with it. Tomorrow, Adams County commissioners will consider a recommendation from the county manager that they fund Meals on Wheels through May, as the county then finds a long-term partner to run the program. The memo, which cites reporting you saw here about the financial freefall of the nonprofit Senior Hub, warns the commissioners that nonprofits like Senior Hub that have not planned for the end of federal stimulus funds may not stick around. Senior Hub dropped income requirements to receive meals, so the number of people they're delivering to ballooned. They switched to a more expensive meal provider, and then they ran out of money for Meals on Wheels when stimulus funds dried up. The transformation of the Colorado Republican Party into a one-man show is now complete. Chairman Dave Williams has used party resources to attack Republicans he doesn't like, to reward his allies, even to push conversions to his religion. And today, Williams used the party platforms to promote his new run for Congress. This morning, Williams announced that he's joining the Republican primary to represent Colorado's 5th Congressional District, El Paso County. That opened up after Representative Doug Lamborn suddenly announced he's going to retire. Williams unsuccessfully ran against Lamborn in 22 and then used the party's apparatus to criticize Lamborn. Williams today used the GOP's official party email list to promote his candidacy to replace Lamborn, and told Republicans he will hold on to his chairman role through the crowded Republican primary. Former GOP chairs Christy Burton Brown and Dick Wadhams said that Williams' actions are unprecedented and unethical.
I think that's a 100% unethical decision to make. If you're the chairman of the party and you decide to run in what will certainly be one of the most heavily contested primaries this year, and I do say this as a former chairman, you should step down.
We'll find out just how corrupt and rotten the Colorado Republican Party is by how this state central committee and other Republican leaders react to this. Silence is going to ensure that the rotten corruption continues.
Williams says he will recuse himself from any party decisions that could directly impact the primary, and he said that his primary opponents could also use the Republican Party's email list to promote their campaigns if it would make them feel better. Under Williams' leadership, all 3 Republican-held congressional seats will be up for grabs this year. Expect 3 primaries full of candidates hoping to win those safe seats, and the large field means that the winners could be opposed by 3/4 or so of voters. I mean, you could have winners that only have 20 or 30% of the vote. That kind of mess is why Denver uses a runoff system, which got politics guy Marshall Zellner thinking.
The possible field of candidates for Congressional District 5 has as many options as a slot machine. The field of candidates is clearer for Congressional District 4 in Douglas County and the Eastern Plains. At least 7 Republicans have said they are running, and if they all qualify for the ballot, it definitely would not require 50% or more to win.
This is a good example of what I have foreseen as a problem.
Amber McReynolds is an expert on election administration. She's a former Denver election director and proponent of ranked choice voting.
It ensures that a candidate would get over 50% support.
For example, if ranked choice voting existed for this year's congressional district primaries, which it does not, a ballot might look like this, where voters are asked to bubble in their favorite choice, followed by next favorite, etc. If no one finishes at 50% after the first ballot, the last place candidate is eliminated, and whoever picked them first gets their second choice tallied. Under the current system, it's whoever finishes first, regardless of what percentage first place equals.
In a primary, when they've got a large field, people can advance to a general election with 20, 30% of the vote. or less than 50, which means that more than half of the voters that participated didn't want that candidate.
I think if you're going to go to a different system, a better system would be to use a runoff. That's what's done in places like Georgia, Louisiana.
Wayne Williams is the former Republican Secretary of State and just lost running for Colorado Springs mayor. He may get into the Republican primary for Congressional District 5, which is winner take all, not a runoff and not ranked choice voting, which he does not currently support for this race.
Can wind up being a name ID contest or a popularity contest as opposed to actually deciding based on the issues that are involved.
Amber McReynolds points out that ranked choice voting saves money over a runoff for both taxpayers and for the candidates who would have to do another election. But then again, saving money is done through no follow-up and just a winner-take-all like currently exists.
The thing that's noteworthy this time is you have all 3 safe Republican seats all up at the same time, so every Republican and their mother is going to cram in there trying to get a seat. So this is going to be on full display, but it's not a new issue that you have crowded primaries and you have winners that don't have a lot of the vote.
The 2018 gubernatorial race that Walker Stapleton won, he won with 44%, 47%. The 2014 gubernatorial primary for Republicans, Bobert was the candidate with 30%. Then you had Tom Tancredo and Scott Gessler behind him in the 20s. That would be, okay, a third of the people said this, Bobert, he was really close behind him. Maybe we should have a different system that gets somebody to 50% that well, not everybody, but that more people could get behind.
Didn't Bobert step down as state chair to run for Congress? No, that's a different story for a different day. Marshall, thank you. Democrats head into the opening of the state legislative session this week divided. Today, the House Speaker reprimanded a far-left member who vocally went after colleagues for their support of Israel. Today, House Speaker Julie McCluskey issued a formal reprimand and a warning to Democratic Rep. Elizabeth Epps of Denver. Epps used debate time during the special session in November to express support for Palestinian civilians. When House leadership then allowed Republican Representative Ron Weinberg, who's Jewish, a chance to come up and talk in support of Israel, Epps repeatedly interrupted him and shouted for him to be ruled out of order. Epps says that Weinberg interrupted her first and that he was out of order. Epps has already been kicked off the House Judiciary Committee. In that reprimand letter, McCluskey says if Epps, quote, repeats her behavior, there could be more discipline. We reached out to Epps this afternoon for a response and haven't heard back. Republican Congresswoman Lauren Bobert's long history of run-ins with the law continues, although it's not clear if she was the victim or the aggressor in the latest. Police responded to an incident involving Bobert and her ex-husband at a restaurant on the Western Slope over the weekend. Silt police did not make an arrest. Today, investigators asked witnesses to the altercation to come forward. Bobert said yesterday that she did not punch her ex-husband in the face, which suggests that that's what's being said. She said that their relationship is a, quote, sad situation that keeps escalating. Bobert is leaving the Western Slope, where she faced a tough road to re-election, so that she can run clear across the state in a more Republican district. Now Bobert says this incident is yet one more reason that she's moving. It's tough to find an empty apartment in Denver these days, but there is an entire empty apartment building in Congress Park. It's been basically abandoned for a week. There's been a power outage after a flood. Tenants reached out to us wondering what Colorado law says about whether a landlord actually has to provide you with a place to live. Here's Steve Steger with that.
It's cold.
The sign on the building at 14th and Steel reads, "Live on Steel," something the tenants here can't do right now.
Our power went out, and as we all came downstairs, we realized that the electrical box was impacted by a flood.
That was Wednesday of last week, and the power's been out ever since. Red Peak, the company that runs this building, offered $125 for tenants who had to stay at a hotel and daily rent reimbursement for anyone staying on someone's couch.
I had a hard time finding a hotel for $125, especially I have a dog.
It's cost Shelby Hoffman closer to $200 a night for the hotel, plus meals and parking somewhere else. Then she got another confusing email from Red Peak suggesting she reach out to her renter's insurance company to file a claim for the accommodations, which made her wonder if the company was going to pay for the hotel after all.
The state law that I've been reading lately is a little bit unclear.
As a Colorado renter, you are entitled to a clean, habitable place to live.
Zach Newman is a lawyer specializing in tenants' rights and co-founder of the Colorado Economic Defense Project.
The first step, the most important step, is as soon as something has gone wrong to let your landlord know.
He says in this case, the landlord knows the problem. They emailed about it, obviously. And since they can't fix it quickly, they're supposed to provide tenants with some sort of alternative, either a stipend for a hotel or cash back on rent.
That cash needs to be made available. And if you think about it practically, that makes sense.
Which it appears Red Peak did. And the renter's insurance in this case, he says, would help pay for things like spoiled food in the fridge and other incidentals along the way.
Generally speaking, those policies are designed to cover those kinds of expenses.
After we asked Red Peak if they still plan to pay for hotels for the folks who live here, they sent out a note to everyone. Quote, "Our intention is to reimburse you all during this outage for your hotel expenses." The company did not specify if it will fully reimburse tenants or just offer that $125 a night. Newman says the most important thing you can do if you're ever in this situation is to notify your landlord. And in that note, you have to give the landlord permission to enter your unit to fix whatever the problem is. And he says you should be mindful of how you're contacting them. You have to use the email address that's in your lease to get their attention. All of that triggers Colorado's warranty of habitability law, which entitles you to all of that help if your landlord can't fix this problem quickly, Kyle.
That's a really good tip. You have to use the same email, because some people would be like, well, I'm going to use the email that says I'm litigious@gmail.com as opposed to, like the other one, but you've got to use the same one.
And make sure that you're reaching out. You might talk to somebody else in the front office with other issues. You want to make sure that you're emailing the email address that is in your lease to contact your apartment. Make sure you're using that one, not, Sue in the office. Make sure that you're emailing whoever you're supposed to email.
All right, Steve Sager, thank you. Hey, and thank you for your generous support of Sun Valley Youth Center through your latest Word of Thanks microgiving campaign, as that nonprofit works to provide after-school support and summertime programs in one of Denver's lowest-income neighborhoods. You donated more than $13,000, and that's not even counting your monthly gifts to the Word of Thanks Fund. If you know of a nonprofit anywhere in our state that could use our support together as a community, just email me, next@9news.com.
A safe and clean and beautiful downtown is all of our responsibility. It's no one organization alone.
And with those fancy-looking vests, the mayor has delivered on another campaign promise. And we'll meet the 12-year-old behind Colorado's plastic bag ban next. Walk the streets of Denver in winter and half the people are wearing those outdoorsy type vests. The people soon wearing a certain shade of marigold will be out there in service of a new city initiative, one that delivers on a campaign promise by Mayor Mike Johnston. The city is deploying 650 people in vests like the one the mayor is wearing, so they can track issues that will be reported to a 24/7 dispatch center that will respond to illegal camping, mental health crises, trash, maintenance issues downtown. People can go up and mention the problems to the vested volunteers or report them through the city's Clean and Safe app. The mayor says the goal is to meet those issues with support services instead of sending police.
If there is unsightly trash, you can let us know. If there is someone in mental health distress who needs support, you can let us know. If there is someone that is using or abusing drugs, you can let us know. If there is someone that needs access to support and services, we want Denver to be a place where everyone feels comfortable and we can be sending the right responder to the right place.
So right now, this narc on people in a stylish vest thing is specific to downtown, but the mayor says it could be expanded to other neighborhoods in the future. It is going to be so cold this week, you're going to want to cover your apps, and you're going to want to listen to Chris Bianchi instead. Chris, you're saying that the weather apps will be remarkably unreliable this weekend compared to normal.
Yeah, I'm going to show exactly why here, Kyle. But again, your apps, this is a real screen grab from an automated weather app. And by the way, weather apps work in certain situations, but when there's high impact weather, like what's coming up this weekend, they're going to be really, really bad. So let's show you. This is a real screen grab from an automated weather app for this weekend. A high of 47 degrees with a low of -5. Now, we get wild weather here in Colorado. Folks, that ain't happening. So here's how weather apps work. They average computer forecast models. So you get one computer forecast model that says it's going to be 50. The other one says it's -20. Well, that's what happens there. You get this sort of gap, and those apps will average out what happens. So that's how you get something like what I just showed you. Is they're kind of averaging, but computers don't sometimes factor in certain things, and that's why often you need a human to kind of figure those things on out, if that makes sense. So I'll show you that 7-day forecast. Here's what's actually going to happen. That colder, denser air mass is going to move in a little faster than those computer forecast models in some cases think they're going to. So this weekend's going to be really, really, really cold. So just bundle on up. No matter what your automated weather app says, that's what's going to happen. By the way, not self-aggrandizing here, but I'm going to say that the 9 News app is a good way to get that kind of more accurate forecast, because I literally sit there and plug in those numbers myself. Now for tomorrow, high temperature of 44 degrees, mostly sunny skies for us here in the Denver area. It's still going to be on the breezy side, and we're getting rid of all that snow that we've had on the eastern plains, but we get some more for us here into the high country. And by the way, here, folks, that's good news. That's where we want to see that snow, and it looks like a very snowy week ahead for us into the high country. Could be talking about maybe 2 feet of snow in some parts of the mountains through the next few days. And then Denver, a little bit of snow, but again, the story for this weekend will be those bitterly cold temperatures, despite what your weather app might say.
He puts in the numbers himself. Hardest working man in show business. Coloradans who are going to be on this planet longer than the rest of us are already making their voices heard in our climate debate and having a real impact. We'll talk to one of them next. Colorado has taken some pretty significant environmental strides lately, phasing out some so-called forever chemicals, limiting the use of plastic grocery bags. The effort involved climate activists from all over the state and also a 12-year-old.
The mission is to raise awareness to the public about how to stop non-green convenience and greedy economics. Hello, I am Madhvi Chittor, a 12-year-old climate activist. I'm the founder of the nonprofit organization Madhvi for Ecoethics when I was 6 years old.
I pledge to replace single-use styrofoam.
Yeah, when I was 5 years old, I watched a CNN documentary called Midway is a Plastic Island, and it was really sad. The really sad thing is that Midway Island is in the middle of nowhere. It's extremely far away from civilization, but the plastic is still all over its shores. So I told my mom I really want to do something about it. So that's how I got inspired to start taking action, and now it's a big passion of mine. I'm extremely thrilled and happy that the law has now become effect since January 1st, and it's a really big win for our ecosystems. Styrofoam leaches styrene, which is a carcinogenic chemical, into our food when it comes into contact with it, and it's also non-biodegradable. And all the plastic bags and styrofoam, which were first manufactured since the 1950s, still exist somewhere in the world, polluting our air, water, soil, and our food chain. This is why this law saves our health and saves our ecosystems.
The dumping of plastics.
I did a lot to try and get the bill to pass. I did many speeches, signature campaigns, meetings and phone calls with many legislators as well as businesses. I think Colorado would be a role model so that now all states will do this ban, and then US will be the role model for all countries.
Feedback about how I'm able to get away with stuff next. Finish with feedback. Chuck writes in to say, how do you get away with being such a sarcastic, smart, making fun of the mayor's vest? Chuck writes, you're saying what we're thinking. So Chuck, you can believe this or you can not believe it, but I actually was not making fun of the mayor's vest. The next team makes fun of me daily because I'm always wearing stupid vests like that. I actually think they're quite comfortable. Anyway, I'm just glad that I don't have a marigold colored one, because then everybody would think that I'm part of the mayor's narc squad, and that's not the deal. So I'll just wear all my other vests. See you next time.